why was I so lucky? And I did a lot of work on discovering my purpose. And when I did that, it was like the lights went off. It was like seeing the fireworks.
Yeah.
And that my purpose, I discovered, was to help other people find their purpose so that they can create that big, bold life with certainty, clarity, and confidence.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life. Hello and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals, and people come on to help us who are perfectly designed for that exact job. That's why I'm very happy that today we have Therese Nicklas with us. She is a certified financial planner. She's a certified money coach and a certified success principles coach. As a result of her coaching program, clients are inspired to design a life they love, filled with joy, purpose, and balance. Terry, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here today. I love doing podcasts, and especially when we're talking about money and helping people create that level of financial freedom that so often seems to elude them.
And why do you think that is, actually? We might as well jump right into the meat of it. Like, why are we so many of us not financially where we want to be?
Well, I think that it's our upbringing and our money mindset. And a lot of times when I bring that up, Christine, people look at me like I have two heads. What is a money mindset? Well, your money mindset is it's like the juice that you put in the engine that creates your results. So if you have negative money thoughts, if you think things like, well, I live paycheck to paycheck, if you have that itty bitty committee in your head that is giving you that message all the time, that becomes your reality. So in order to change your results, you have to change that message.
And it's unfortunate, right? As you were saying that, I was thinking of all the little mantras that we're given, money doesn't grow on trees, and right, all these little things that we're told as we're growing up. Why can't it grow on trees? Why can't we just create the wealth we want? Why can't we design the life we want and then just go out and find it? I feel like our families give us a little extra challenge,
negativity,
a little extra baggage there.
Right, exactly. And I think part of that is, well, I know in my case, my parents grew up through the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And their parents were immigrants. So I'm first generation American. And for them, they really, really struggled. So their whole upbringing was struggle. So they associate any kind of success with struggle. And if you're a person who really doesn't want to work that hard, then you're going to say, I can't be bothered, in the back of your mind.
And I think even if you feel like you do want to work really hard, you still feel like, you're not going to struggle and then suddenly become a millionaire, right? You're just going to struggle for the rest of your life as your family
Exactly.
did.
Right. As your family did. So another problem is when we look at, if you watch old movies, the rich person was always a bad person.
That's right.
Right. So if you have that messaging in the back of your head that rich people are bad, I don't want to be bad, therefore I will not be rich.
Right.
And I work with a lot of folks who are in the spiritual space. So they might be yoga instructors or therapists or, people in that world. And there is a real conflict for a lot of them between doing well financially and doing good things for others.
Yeah. And in fact, if we don't have lots of money, it's harder to do good things for others, right? If you have lots of money, it's so much easier to share. And do you think it's different for women?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, again, it's a lot of conditioning. The Gen Xers today are like the first generation of women who it was completely acceptable to get up, go to work, still have a family, still have the spouse, all of those things. But for the generation before them, there was a real challenge with that. There were a lot of us that did it, but you did it with the, you'd see your parents or your in-laws or whatever, looking down on you,
right,
for having a career and a family, doing it all, so to speak.
Right, absolutely. And even education. And I'm sure, I don't think I don't think women were being educated and were being expected to be the ones to handle the money or to
Right.
learn about how their stocks should be invested and things like that. So
Right. For so many women, the man was the plan. The man was the financial plan. And, when the man left or died or whatever, they were left stranded. And
right.
I saw that in my own family. I saw that with, the women, like my mother's generation, her siblings, they didn't have a clue. And in particular, she had a sister who was married to a person who she never should have married. That's like a whole other long story.
Right.
But the sad thing is that everything that her parents said to her, like, don't marry him, you're going to have a life of misery. She didn't listen. She did her own, went against the grain and married him anyways. And she did have a life of misery. Then they divorced at a time in the early 60s when people didn't get divorced. And she didn't even have a high school education. She never got a high school diploma. So she had 3 children. He basically flew the coop. So she didn't have any financial support. She was like a man without a country.
Wow.
And it ended up costing her mentally as well as financially. And it was very sad. She had a mental breakdown when her kids were, I think the youngest might have been about 9.
Wow.
And they ended up in foster care for a period of time while she ended up in the mental hospital.
Wow.
And yeah, it was tragic. And the good news was that, she did come through that. She ended up meeting somebody and remarrying, and the person that she remarried was an angel. I mean, just like sent from heaven, and he treated her like a queen and like she deserved. I mean, but she was good to him too. It wasn't a one-way street, but
Yeah.
it was just wonderful to see her come out on the other side. But that woman really went through hell, and part of it was she didn't have the financial backing. She got a divorce at a time when people didn't get a divorce. It was shameful. So she was carrying all of that burden.
Yeah.
And, it was just got to be too much. And finally, at one point, she just lost it.
And in the end, the white knight had to come and save her, which is not really what we all want to count on, right?
Right. The white knight did. But I mean, they worked together. It wasn't like she was living on Easy Street, but she had a support system. She had somebody who loved her and who took good care of her, and she took care of him. When she became very ill, she had cancer and she was dying. I mean, he was her caregiver, and he did a wonderful, wonderful job. And he was very devoted to her, and she deserved that.
Yeah. How can women get beyond some of these almost inherited mindsets that we're saddled with?
Saddled is a great word, Christine. I love that. I think that it's very difficult often for people to figure all that out alone. And I think being open to finding a support system, whether it's working with a coach or whether it's just reading a lot of really good books, doing some, looking things up online and doing some things on your own. I think number one, having the desire, recognizing that there is a problem that needs to be addressed, and then looking for the information that's going to get you from point A to point B. And sometimes for people, it means working with another person.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Do you find sometimes people, when they're not in an abundance mindset, when they're thinking that money is too scarce and that, do you find some resistance to them working with a coach?
I do. And it's like the chicken and the egg theory,
Right.
which comes first. So I know my own example, I was very fortunate. I had a great role model as far as money, and that was my paternal grandmother. I couldn't have asked for a better role model. So, but that didn't mean I didn't have financial challenges, and many times in my life I did. I just seemed to know how to figure it out, but that didn't always make it easy. There were many times in my life, and even like in my business life, when I look back and I think if I had invested in myself and hired a coach, a good coach that could have shortened my learning curve and helped me avoid the landmines that I jumped into with both feet, it would have I would have made more money on the other end. So it is a risk, it is that chicken and egg, what comes first. But if you're working with somebody who really knows how to address your problem and get you where you need to be quicker, you'll save money in the long run.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people too with my real estate investing is that I've already made every mistake. So you don't have to waste years and, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars making
Right,
those same mistakes, right? For a
right.
fraction of what you could have lost yourself.
Exactly. I mean, there's always a cost to everything, Christine.
Right.
You have opportunity cost, you have learning curve cost, you have fear, and also just that feeling of it's exhausting when you're constantly struggling and you're like swimming upstream every single day. You get to a point, and the big cost is you might quit too soon
Yeah, absolutely.
or stay in too long. I mean, it could go either way.
Right.
But, if you're without the right guidance, it's not free.
Right.
To not work with, to do it on your own is definitely not free. There is a cost that you're paying.
Absolutely true. And that's true with any kind of coaching. You can make every single mistake yourself. And you might think, oh, but at least I didn't have to pay to make those mistakes. But you can pay to not have to make those mistakes.
Right,
And then you end
right,
up in a much better place.
right.
So when you
Well
first
said.
start, when you first start working with someone, what's the process that you take them through?
Well, the first thing that I like to do is a discovery call or a strategy session to see if we're a good fit
Hmm.
and find out what is their problem that they're trying to address. And so often, Christine, the first thing that really comes to me as I'm working with them is they're really unhappy and they don't know why they're unhappy. So often, when we are feeling that sense of dissatisfaction, we think, oh, it's the job that I have. Maybe if I quit my job and do something else, maybe if I just quit my job and stay home, maybe if I start a business. There's all these things that go through our head. But what I like to do is really get to the root of where that unhappiness is living and then see if my services are a fit to help them get them out of that. If they do decide to come on board and work with me, I have a few different ways that I can work with them. Right now, I'm only doing one-to-one type work, but I am planning to start group work in the fall.
Hmm.
I love one-to-one, so it's been hard for me to think, oh, do I really want to go to a group? Because I really love that energy and that personalization.
Hmm.
And by taking them through the discovery process and figuring out what the problem is, and I can customize a program to help them. So we might work on things like, where are you as far as retirement? And I'm not talking about the investing part. I don't do investments anymore. I do have a colleague that I refer that to, but I might look at, what is that dream lifestyle that you really want, that you think is going to make you feel fulfilled and happy? What's that going to cost?
Yeah.
Because often we dream about, oh, I'd like to move to France. Well, terrific. What does it cost to move to France? What is all of that going to mean? Do you have the financial backing to do that? And I help them navigate all of that. If they're thinking they might want to leave their job and do something else, well, what is that something else? So I'll work with them on discovering their purpose, helping them figure out what really brings them joy, what lights them up. Because let's face it, Christine, life's too short to do anything but.
It's
And when
really,
they have that information and you see them light up, it is the most rewarding thing in the world for me as their coach.
yeah, it's true. And I think even a lot of times I hear people act like retirement is the goal, this word retirement. But
Right.
what does that actually mean in terms of your day-to-day life, right?
Right.
When you're retired, does that mean you're going to play golf 24/7? Are you going to just watch soap operas? I mean, what does that really mean? And then you can start to say, this is how much that's going to cost.
Exactly. Exactly. So to that, I worked with a woman a few years ago during COVID. Now, COVID was a trigger for a lot of people. I don't know if you saw that in the real estate world, but it was like a wake up call, how quickly life can change.
Right.
And what do I need to do to control the controllables?
Yeah.
And this woman came to me with two questions. The first one was, do I have enough money to retire? The second question was, what do I do with myself in retirement? She was single, never married, never had any children. So it isn't like she had, a pile of grandchildren that she could spoil or anything like that. She's like, what will my day look like? All I've ever done is work.
Yeah.
So helping her navigate what that dream life would look like was so invigorating for both of us. She walked away with a a real solid game plan for what retirement, now she had something to look forward to. Like, what was I going to do with my time in retirement? And figuring out, what does that cost? We figured all of that out. She had more than enough money, which was very exciting for her. And she put a pin in it and she said, I'm retiring 1 year from today.
Excellent. How
Terrific.
exciting.
It was very exciting, and she had something to look forward to. So the sad news is she passed away this year.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So her brother called me to tell me that she had passed, and I was devastated. And I said, well, I hope she had some time in her retirement, like that she wasn't sick the whole time. And he said, no. He said she had 2.5 really good years where she checked everything off her list. She was like, I got this list and I'm going to do all these different things. And she did them all. And he said she often would mention how she had worked with me. Now, I'm not saying it was because it was me, but because she did the work and figured all of that out, knew what her budgeting was, knew what that lifestyle was going to cost her. And she just went out and enjoyed it. And to know that she was absolutely able to do that was so heartwarming for me. And he said to me, if she didn't work with someone like you, whether it's, me or someone else, but if she didn't do that, he said, I bet anything she would have just kept on working because she didn't know anything else.
Right. Exactly. And that was going to be my next question. Do you often find that people are thinking, oh, I have to have X millions of dollars before I can really retire comfortably, and they'll work themselves to the ground when, in fact, they have plenty of money?
Right. Yes, I do. And I think part of that problem is, we hear the media that says, oh, you need X amount of dollars. Well, Christine, if you wanted to go around the world 4 times a year, and I just wanted to sit in a rocking chair, and we both retired with the same amount of money, well, whose money do you think is going to last longer?
It depends if you're on the shopping channel all day or not while you're in your rocker.
That's true. Yes, you've got a point there. That's very true. Assuming I'm not, probably my money's going to last longer, but who cares? I'm bored to death. But I'll die in the rocking chair of boredom.
Exactly.
But the point is that we don't know if we have enough until we take a few steps back and sort it all out of what do we want to do with that time? What do we want that third act of our life to look like? And when
And are
we
you
know
helping
that,
people as well to figure out like their legacy?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I had a woman who, I work with a lot of single women and successful, high achieving, and she's made a ton of money, saved a lot of money, comes from a family of women who have all done the same thing. And none of them are married, none of them have children, except for her mother, who, these were all adult kids.
Right.
And she said to me, Terry, I've got all this money amassed. Okay, I got this like big pile. She went like this. I have this big pile of money. And if I get hit by a bus and I leave it to my siblings and my mother, we're taking a big pile of money and just putting it on top of another big pile of money. Something is wrong with this picture. And I said, well, what would you like the footprints in the sand of your life to look like? And she thought, and she said, I've always been very concerned about women that are in like bad situations, like battered women or, abuse and house abuse and things like that.
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay, what could you do about it? And she said, well, I guess I could set up like regular donations to an organization. I said, yes, you could do that. I said, would that be fulfilling? And she said, no,
Not really.
Not really. And then as we, again, through the coaching, through pulling this information out of her, what came out of all of this, Christine, was that she wanted to be the solution, not just the wallet. So she talked to her family and they came up with an idea to fund a foundation, to start their own foundation, and all of them contributing to it. And that her legacy is she's coming up with the curriculum for how to teach women to get out of bad situations. Like, what are the steps that they need to take? What are the resources that they will need in order to get out of that bad situation.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if she hadn't stopped and thought it through.
Exactly. Either she never would have created an estate plan because she didn't really care, or, which happens a lot with people that don't have, like a big family or a lot of children, they could care less. So they
Right.
well, what do
I'm
I
dead.
care?
Who cares?
I'm dead. I can't take it with me. I'm going for
Right.
the big dirt nap in the sky, So, having that sense of purpose, and often in my work, that's why I come back to purpose, because without it, you're like a ship without a rudder. And I know that from my own experience. I had struggled for many years to discover my own purpose, because when I was born, I was given 24 hours to live.
Wow.
And this was at a time when you didn't have NICUs, you didn't have resources for babies that were born, very ill, which I was.
Yeah.
I was 8 weeks premature and I had other complications. So the prognosis was either I wasn't going to see the next day, or if I did, I would have all this like long list of maladies that I would have to live with the rest of my life. And by some reason, by the grace of God or source or whatever you want to call it, I was spared. Not only was I have the luxury of a healthy life, but I obviously lived beyond the 24 hours. And for
Clearly.
many, clearly, unless you live in Alaska. But for many years, I wondered why me? And ironically, I have many family members. I can probably count 10 without even having to think about it, that were born way after me, like next generation, that were not as fortunate. And I think, why, at a time when this never, very rarely happened, why was I so lucky? And I did a lot of work on discovering my purpose. And when I did that, it was like the lights went off. It was like seeing the fireworks.
Yeah.
And that my purpose, I discovered, was to help other people find their purpose so that they can create that big, bold life with certainty, clarity, and confidence.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful mission.
Thank
And
you.
as you said, very rewarding, right? It's a
It is.
win-win
It's
as
a
they're
win-win-win.
growing,
Yes.
right? Yeah, they're growing and evolving, and it's bringing you so much joy as well.
Right. Right.
What
But that's
advice?
why I get back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give to women who are feeling like they're just going through the motions, right? They're just going to work and coming home and they're just not engaged, they're not plugged in. They're just like, maybe in a little bit of a funk.
Hamster wheel syndrome.
Yeah, exactly.
So I call it. You get up every day, you get shot out of a cannon just to land on the hamster wheel.
Exactly.
Well, for them, that's a great question, Christine. My advice is to discover your purpose, because if you're feeling like that, you're out of alignment. You're out of alignment with things that bring you joy, things that make you feel fulfilled, and the things that, really get you on that path toward living your purpose. And I really believe that when you find that, it's like your soul lights up. And I believe we all deserve to live with a lit up soul. And I think that when you do that, you're now living your life by design instead of by default. That person who gets up every day, gets shot out of the cannon, and lands on the hamster wheel is living by default. It's like lather, rinse, repeat. The person who is in alignment with their purpose and the things that light them up and bring them joy are designing their life and living it accordingly.
How long does it normally take? I know this is a crazy question, but from when you first start working with someone, is it fairly quick that they like figure out that purpose, or is it something that has to evolve over time?
It kind of depends on the person. But what I did this year is I created a program where we get it done in a day.
Well, that's pretty
And
good.
I work with them for a whole day. And we start with mindset, we go into purpose, we go into joy, and then we set goals and targets around whatever we uncovered of how to get to the promised land, how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And that's what purpose is all about, getting you to where you want to be. So we can do it in a day, but then it's like, rote method, keep going, keep working on it, because you don't want to just put it down and walk away and expect, miracles to happen.
Right.
It's like building a muscle. So you're building that purpose-driven life muscle. The other way, some folks don't want to give up a whole day. They want to take sound bites and do it over time. So for them, I have a 3-month, a 90-day program. And I also have a 9-month, and I will be coming out probably towards the end of the year with a 12-month. Although for anybody that was working with me, if they want to extend it, we do. And I just customize whatever it is that they need. But I think that you can figure it out in a day. I've done it. I did this work on myself. And once you do, then it's like, okay, what do I do with this information? And that's where they may feel like they need a little more accountability, guidance.
Yeah.
Really kind of depends on them.
What's an exciting transformation that you've seen that you can kind of remember, somebody who came in and they were maybe really low, and then by the time they figured out their purpose, that they just went on fire?
Well, that was the woman I was telling you about earlier. Her name was Tony. And I would end our calls in tears, because just seeing this person who came to me rather, I'd say disenchanted, I guess might be the best way to describe it. I wouldn't say she was like unhappy or depressed or anything like that, but she seemed like a lost soul, because she just didn't know what to do, what was around the corner. She had been the caregiver to her mother. Her mother had recently passed away. So she didn't have that sense of human connection. She felt very much alone in the world. And now we have COVID, where you're isolated even more. So she was going through a lot of anxiety over isolation.
Yeah.
And I think giving her that permission to think about herself for a change, even though she was a single person, you think, well, she didn't have anyone to worry about. She did. She worried about her mother. She took care of her mother. So giving her permission to say, okay, it's my turn. And this is what I used to say to her all the time on the calls. I'd say, Tony, it's your turn. It's your turn. And she'd laugh and she'd light up. And then she'd think about, oh, what do I want to do when I retire? And she was a librarian. So she said, oh, I could still volunteer. I would love to volunteer in the children's room. I love little kids. Terrific. So let's just say Monday is your volunteer day. We came up with this calendar. And then she said she had family she hadn't seen for a long time, and she wanted to see them. And we talked about what that would mean. Would she go to them? Would they come to her? And just, she got so excited about her future. And it was just, she felt like, now I have a reason to live. I have a purpose. I have people in my life that I'm going to connect. I'm going to organize a family reunion. I'm going to volunteer at the library. She had all these things. She thought, I have value. I have things I can do. I have things I can give. And just giving her that permission to dig down deep into her soul, because the answers are all inside of us. Sometimes we just need that Sherpa guide to help pull that information out.
Yeah.
And as I would question her and we brainstorm on things, and she would come up with these great ideas, I would see her at the end of the call just excited. And she was the best at, if I asked her to send me something or get me information, I'd have it the next day. She was making this happen.
Yeah, that's fantastic and fun. Like you say,
It
it's
was fun.
energizing
It
for
was
you as well as
so
her.
rewarding. It was so,
Yeah.
I felt like I needed to write her a check.
Cool. So, Terry, what do you want to make sure that people know? Is something that I haven't asked you yet, something we haven't touched on, like that you really want to make sure people know?
Well, I think I would like people to know that whatever it is that might be in the back of their mind, it's there for a reason. If they're either unhappy with the situation they're in right now, there are ways to change that. Life is way too short to spend 1 second being miserable. And I think that if you really you're questioning things, find help sorting things out so that you know the difference between what you have to do and what you want to do. And then figure out what that want to do is going to cost so you can plan accordingly. I think for anyone, whatever kind of, situation you're in, we're all entitled to happiness. I think happiness and joy are our birthright, as well as abundance. And I think that it's up to us to go find it.
Absolutely true. Amen to that. Uh, Terry, if people feel like, wow, I've been listening to her and I really need to have a conversation, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, the best way is through the link that I had provided to set up a discovery call with me. I do a free 30-minute strategy session. And in that time, what I'll do is I'll ask you questions where you are, where it is that you want to be. I can explain how I can help you, and you'll walk away with at least a few good sound bites to get you started, even if you decide not to work with me. I have a website. I also have I built it on Canva, but it's like a link tree page. And I also have a free gift for all of our listeners
Oh, nice.
it's a nice toolkit that they can have. And one of the exercises in there is about finding your purpose. So I think that's the best way to get started. I'm a little
Excellent.
biased, but I think that's the best way to get started. But I'm more
Well,
than happy to speak with your listeners. They have questions, reach out. I'm more than happy to talk to them.
that's awesome. Thank you so much, Terry. That's really fun. I feel like it's something that we might not want to think about, right? Getting older, retiring, whatever. We might be thinking, oh, I just have to. A cousin of mine actually, she just says, oh, I just have to work for 10 more years. And then I just think, oh, 10 years, that is so long. Oh my God.
And she
Yeah,
might not have to. And there
exactly.
again, like if she spent the next 10 years, unless she loves her job, then it doesn't really
She
matter.
hates it.
But,
Hates
I
it.
know people that hate their job. Why would you want to spend 10 years in misery? Spend some time, talk to a person, see if there's an option,
Yeah.
figure out where you are right now and where you want to be. What is your skill set that you could possibly convert to a side hustle and then maybe only work for 3 or 4 more years?
Yeah. Great idea. Excellent. Terry, thank you so much for being with us today. I love what you've shared, and I know that some people out there are thinking you've got their wheels turning. So I want them to make sure, I want you listeners to make sure you share this episode with a couple people who you know who are maybe not as happy as they might possibly be in their current situation, and hear what Terry has to say, and also hopefully take some action.
Action is the magic word, Christine.
It
That's,
certainly
we
is.
can plan, we can prepare. It's like if you were a gardener and all you did was go out and turn your soil and turn your soil and turn your soil, and you never plant the seeds, you're not going to get a crop. Got to
That's for
plant the
sure.
seeds, got to take the action.
That's for sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you.
You too, Christine. This was great. Thank you. And I'll be sure to share this on my media because I think a lot of people need to hear this.
Oh, they definitely do. Definitely do.